passed it the way we wanted to pass it yesterday. The governor has promised to veto it and pass it the way you guys sent it back to us. So I think we're sticking to our guns with what we did yesterday on the House floor.
And just to add to that, many of the members that voted for that bill in the first place are not here currently. The constitutional question lingers, as y'all know. It is the feeling of many in the House that if you do want to see some language pass, that it would be necessary not to take the Attorney General representing any citizen language, or nothing will pass or be vetoed. And it is the desire of the House that we do pass something with intent out there, and that this is the only way that it's felt that we can get that language out.
You know, I think that you summarized the position of the Senate too. The Senate voted and we acted. I think the Senate language is an attempt to actually do something, not just a statement of intent. Whether or not it is constitutional, I guess, could be decided another day. But in the meantime, there is language that does provide some action as opposed to intent. And the Senate, I think, is comfortable with that language. So.
Senator, do you feel ultimately that if we would pass the Senate language, that it would be vetoed?
That's going to be up to the governor. I've been there before.
Have they not indicated that to you?
They've not indicated it to me.
They have strongly indicated as to us that to vote for this bill is to vote for a veto, but the problem is also in the House, we can't pass your language. We have had little fights the last couple of days, just before we nearly lost this bill. It was a very dangerous situation. We luckily did save this bill, and to vote for this bill as it is right now with the Senate amendment on it is to vote for a veto. If you insist on having this language, you are insisting on having a piece of legislation that will be vetoed. It doesn't matter if you agree with the Attorney General's language that is constitutional or not constitutional. I don't happen to agree with the Attorney General's language, but that's not what matters. It matters that he is the governor's attorney, and the governor trusts his word, and the governor will not approve a bill that he says is unconstitutional. So to vote for the Senate's language is to vote for a veto. And so the House is asking you to please go with our language. We could always come back and strengthen this under a new governor.
Would y'all be comfortable with the Senate version with the severability clause?
To still do that is to vote. I don't know that we could pass that.
I would add, I don't think we can pass it. I would be willing to vote for it. I'd be willing to vote for it the way you guys sent it, but I don't think we would pass it. Therefore, we wouldn't get anything done. I don't even think we get to the veto stage.
That's right.
I don't think we have the members to
It's
do
not
it.
a negotiation. Really, we're at the point with the low numbers. It's not a fight of principle. It's a fight of practical. And the votes are simply not there. And quite frankly, they would argue that we need a severability clause with the House version. I'm leaving that up for
I think we've pretty well stated the situation. Do y'all have any
Well,
questions or comments?
I'll just say this, the only way that we got to call the bill up was to agree to put this language on it, and we had to give our word that this would be the language, and that we wouldn't agree to anything else.
And we can agree to disagree then.
Have you tried to agree to the House's language?
Well, I know that, members told me as I walked out the door, if you come back with language other than what they had agreed with to begin with, they're not going to pass this bill. So I was told that as I walked out the door. So if the Attorney General, if there's a piece on there for the Attorney General to defend or taken off, would the remainder of this language be acceptable?
Say that again.
If you took the piece off that would require the Attorney General to defend, would you be acceptable to the language?
Would require or permit the Attorney General to defend citizens, I think is the problem. Now, if the Attorney General defending the state obviously is right, but the Attorney General defending the citizens, I think, is where the issue is. So perhaps,
Say something. I spoke to the Attorney General earlier, and the Attorney General said that his position is that he would not defend the state against the federal government. And I was trying to understand his reasoning for his Attorney General's opinion of that language. And he said that he would not defend the state against any action by the federal government. He does not feel it needs to be defended. So even if the legislature said you have to defend the state against this federal health care bill, he said that he would not do it. So therefore, it's still a problem even that would be a problem.
but Senator Black, you are trying to find some resolve. And certainly, I want to go home, baby.
Yeah, I want to go home, baby, too.
If we could limit that to the defense of the state and leave everything as it is, that would, we're talking about what we pass, not what he said. If we could limit that to his defense of the state, I think that may give some comfort level that we could perhaps move a little bit on. Would that be objectionable, or are you saying that the Attorney General shall arbitrarily defend citizens?
Well, I'm trying to find some common ground is what I'm trying
Yeah,
to do.
and I'd love to get there with you.
Yeah.
Why are y'all so concerned about that language?
Veto.
The effect of that language?
Veto, quite frankly.
Well, is that the sole basis of the veto? Language that's
think
not
that
effective
is-
because it's one branch trying to tell another branch
That's
what
the
to
portion
do?
that makes it unconstitutional, that
Well,
arguably
again,
makes it
if we
unconstitutional.
had a severability clause,
I didn't bring my notes, but there were 4 points that the Attorney General made to me. They're actually back in there. But there were 4 different points, and the points are rather broad and throughout the bill. And yes, all of those points make us worry about veto.
Any individual can bring suit against the federal government, and they have that right. The Attorney General is only to work for the state of Tennessee. So if we could narrow it down to defending the state of Tennessee, I think that would perhaps hit everybody's intent.
He is the attorney for the state of Tennessee, which is comprised of citizens of the state of
Yes, ma'am.
Tennessee.
I understand. But his job is to work for the state, not the individuals. Individuals hire their own representation.